All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order, and we've got some opening remarks. The public meeting is being heard by the City Council Planning Advisory Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The non-elected members of the Planning Advisory Committee are Mr. John Baltutis, Mr. David Joyce, Ms. Catherine Brown, and Mr. Paul Jennings. Citizen appointees may ask questions and participate in the discussion in order to assist in making recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the local planning appeal board. If a person or public body does not make an oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any persons wishing to be advised of the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee's recommendations with respect to today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet located on the clipboard beside the podium. And for attendance, Councillor Williams sends his regrets. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I'll go to public meeting. 3.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10-245. Sorry, hold on one second. Sorry. Sorry about that. For proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10-245 as amended, 219 and 225 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1099. Owner applicant is Fixed for Life, David and Darlene Quincy. Agent is Keith Watson, OLS, Watson Land Surveyors. Mr. Ashton.
So this application proposes to rezone the subject land as a condition of consent application B-2419. On December 19th, 2019, the Committee of Adjustment gave consent to sever the property with conditions that both the retained and severed parcels are to be rezoned appropriately for necessary zoning relief, provide sufficient parking, and have a shared right-of-way. The application proposes to rezone the subject land from Highway Commercial C3 zone to General Commercial C2 zone and Highway Commercial C3 zone with special provisions for yard setbacks and lot frontage requirements. Relevant policies of the province and the city's official plan, which will be considered by staff, are listed in the report. The recommendation before committee is to receive the report as information and direct staff to report back once all input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? If you come forward, just activate the microphone there.
My name is Jennifer Matthews, and I'm here on behalf of Watson Land Surveyors to answer any questions if anybody has any about this application.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the application? And finally, a third time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? See none, can I get a motion to refer? Councillor Kelly, Councillor Sanderson, all in favor? Motion's carried. I'll get an adjournment for this portion. Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Kelly, all in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, on to planning advisory. Again, Councillor Williams sends his regrets, as does Mr. Joyce. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, can I get confirmation of the minutes of the City Council Committee, Planning Committee meeting and Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on January 6, 2020? Councillor Culhane, Mr. Jennings, all in favor? Motion's carried. Deputations, Amy Dickens, Source Water Protection Project Coordinator at Quinte Conservation, will make a presentation to the committee. I'll get a resolution on the floor that the presentation by Amy Dickens, Source Water Protection Project Coordinator at Quinte Conservation regarding the Quinte Region Source Water Program be received. Councillor Kelly, Ms. Brown, Ms. Dickens, you have the podium.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to come talk to you today. As was said, my name is Amy Dickens. I'm the Source Water Project Coordinator at Quinte Conservation, and I apologize, I'm just on the end of the flu, and I've got the raspy voice, so if anything needs to be clarified, just give me a shout. I'm here today just to give a brief overview of the source protection program, the drinking water systems within the city of Belleville, and the municipal role, and you as the advisory committee, as well as some good news stories at the end. I think we are all old enough here to remember the tragedy that happened in Walkerton 20 years ago when the town's municipal groundwater became contaminated with E. coli, and 7 people died and over 2,500 were left ill, some with some long-term health effects still. However, maybe not as well known as the tragedy was the inquiry that happened afterwards. And from that public inquiry, there were a series of recommendations, one of which was the creation of the Clean Water Act, and that happened in 2006. The Clean Water Act is what governs the Source Water Protection Program. And it's a provincial initiative to protect existing and future sources of drinking water from both overuse and contamination. And it's a locally led and science-driven initiative under the Clean Water Act, as I said, and currently just focuses on municipal drinking water systems. Now, when I say source water, I'm referring to untreated surface water from lakes and rivers or groundwater from aquifers that people use for their drinking water. One of the many recommendations that came out of the inquiry was that it be a multi-barrier approach. So the image here that you can see shows source water protection as that first barrier. However, the steps 2 through 6, the drinking water system inspections and testing, that all falls under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So to give you a snapshot of where we've been, I've been involved with this program at Quinte Conservation since its inception. So following the creation of the Clean Water Act, there were local source protection committees created, and ours locally was created in 2007. And that committee is local individuals, and they're responsible for creating all the science and all the reports that eventually got rolled up into the source protection plan. And our local source protection plan was approved by the province in September of 2014 and came into effect January 1st of 2015. And since then, we've been assisting our municipalities and any other implementing bodies in that plan with implementation. And just new last year was to sort of take a look at that source protection plan and update according to any new findings. So just give you a bit of the background before we jump in here to the vulnerable areas or the intake protection zones. Now there are 2 within the City of Belleville's jurisdiction. The main one here is the intake protection zone around the City of Belleville's intake. So you can see there's a main intake and a small backup intake beside it. And that red zone around that is called the Intake Protection Zone 1, or IPZ1. That's your most vulnerable area. And it's a 1 kilometer radius around those intakes, except for where it hits shore, it's truncated at 120 meters. Now, as that's your most vulnerable, it has the highest vulnerability score in this area, and it's a 9. Now, that being said, scores can range between 8 and 10, so you're sort of right in the middle there. And then as we move to the west, that yellow zone is your intake protection zone 2, and that's a 2-hour time of travel. So essentially, if there were a spill or release some contaminants within that area, it could take up to 2 hours to reach the intake. And the thinking with the 2 hours is that's sufficient time to get notice to the operators to shut down the intake, so your whole drinking water system is not contaminated. Now, I have the original here because it was just recently updated. There on the west to include those new subdivisions. I think it's Potter's Creek subdivision. So this was just approved in the summer or fall of 2019 by the province. So that that new subdivision, because any water there could take still fall within that 2 hours. So that's why that zone was updated. Now, perhaps lesser known is the Point Anne intake protection zone. So there is that small intake down at the end of Point Anne to service those homes. Now, this one's a bit more complicated. It still has the intake protection zone 1, that red half circle, again, truncated at 120 meters. And the intake protection zone 2, the yellow, again, 2 hours. Now, a bit different here is that the water actually gets moved into a well. And because that well can be influenced by groundwater, we had to do a wellhead protection area around that as well. So that blue circle is the wellhead protection area A. It's a 100-meter radius. And again, because it's so close, that's your most vulnerable, and that has a score of 10. And then as you move away, the green is your wellhead protection area B, or it's a 2-year time of travel. So any contaminants in the groundwater could take up to 2 years to get there. And then the orange is the wellhead protection area C, which is a 5-year time of travel, just to give you some ideas there. Now, like I said, the plan was originally approved in 2014 and came into effect in 2015. Within the source protection plan, there are 63 different policies to address any existing or future threats to the drinking water. Now, in that new area on the west side of Belleville, because the implementation had been occurring for 4 or 5 years, it has its own effective date. So it came into effect in September of 2019. So any policies within there that apply have, they're 3 or 5 years from 2019. Now, those 63 policies, it may sound like a lot, but it's because there are 22 prescribed drinking water threats, which I've sort of rolled up there on the left into a few smaller categories. But these are what the province has told us are significant concerns for drinking water. So there is a policy for anything you can think of, even airplane de-icing, as unlikely as it is in our area to have a major airport. There are policies to address any of those significant drinking water threats. Now, the committee, when they created these policies, could use a variety of tools, and I've tried to summarize those on the right. So some are voluntary, others are mandatory. All encourage good stewardship. And the majority of policies address risk management plans and prohibition, which I'll talk about now. So not a huge concern within the city's jurisdiction, but prohibition within the source protection plan is in that 100-meter zone around the wells. So just to give you some examples, if an agricultural operation were to be proposed in that area, we would review to ensure that they're not spreading manure right up to the well, like as occurred in Walkerton. There's no livestock grazing. Those sort of things would be prohibited. Similarly, home heating oil tanks in that because of their likelihood of failing. And then finally, that bottom one is dense non-aqueous phase liquids, which is a very fancy way of saying dense chemicals that are denser than water, and so they sink. So they've been prohibited in that most vulnerable area. And similarly, as you move away, there are a number of policies that call for risk management plans. So just to provide you with some examples on that, if there were a garage proposed down at Pete's Point and they'd be doing oil changes, the waste oil is considered a significant drinking water threat. So we would work with them to create a risk management plan to have additional measures just to ensure that it's not going to fail and contaminate. Similarly, in Belleville, risk management plans would be required for agricultural operations, and I know that's a mainly residential area. So again, these aren't big concerns for City of Belleville, but making sure that we watch any new applications that are coming in. Just to give you an idea, the actual threats within the City of Belleville are the pumping station at the bottom of Palmer, and the Zwicks Island, because of the closed landfill, has a condition site on it. And then down at Pete's Point, it's mainly septic systems and home heating oil tanks. Now, I said the majority deal with risk management plans, and although not a lot of existing within the City of Belleville, we also look at the future, so any applications that you would receive under the building code or planning application, any that are within that area, your staff send back to our office to review. And if there were a significant drinking water threat assisted with one of those applications, we would work with the proponent to do some risk management measures to ensure there's no failure. So that role, albeit for the municipality, it has been delegated back to Quinte Conservation to do on your behalf. Also, the education and outreach program is a municipal role, but has been delegated back to Quinte Conservation to do on your behalf, which we continue to do today. Additionally, zoning bylaws and official plans have been updated to include all of these plans within the, or sorry, policies within the plans. And then finally, any of the sewage infrastructure or those septic systems down at Point Anne, those are also a municipal responsibility under the source protection program. And I believe the first round of all those septic systems were done about 3 to 4 years ago. So within the next year or two, they'll be due again for the next round. So it's every 5 years those are inspected. And then finally, while we're here, all the planning decisions also must conform to the policies within the plan. Now, there are differing legal effects depending on the policy. Some are legally binding and you must conform to, whereas others are strategic and you should have regard for. Now, that being said, we encourage municipalities to have a strong rationale if you're not going to follow a policy, because there is some reason or another why the committee created that policy. But that's why we work closely with your municipal staff to ensure that all the policies are addressed by the city. And then finally, under the Safe Drinking Water Act, I'm sure you're all aware, there's a statutory standard of care that extends legal responsibility to people making decisions with decision-making authority over a municipal drinking water system. So again, we work closely with your municipal staff and you as well to ensure that everyone is aware of what's required of them in that source protection plan. And we are always available for consultation should anything arise and there are questions over. And you're not alone in this either. Besides our staff that work on this program, there is the Source Protection Committee, like I alluded to earlier, and they're responsible for developing and updating this plan. And the makeup of that committee, there's 21 local people. There are 5 municipal representatives. Councillor Culhane is our current representative. And there's 5 economic sector and 5 general public. So just ensuring that everyone's interests are looked after. And the Source Protection Authority is the Quinte Conservation Board, so they oversee the whole process and they're responsible for any submissions to the ministry. And I know a few councillors here tonight are a part of that board, so we appreciate their support as well. And just a few good news stories before I wrap up. The municipality has received, don't quote me, just under $100,000. Most of our municipalities received from the ministry between 2015 and 2018 to help implement all of these policies. And we've worked very closely with our municipal staff. We created implementation binders which explain each of those policies and what the intent were and what we're looking for. So we've worked with the staff prior to the plan coming into effect, as well as the past 5 years, to ensure that there are no questions. And in 2018, that was our first year to do an annual progress report. And what that does is it essentially rolls up any implementing body within the Source Protection Plan reports annually on their status. And so we roll up all that information and submit it to the ministry. And in 2018, over 95% of our significant drinking water threat policies were either in progress or fully implemented. So the committee decided on progressing well or on target, which was sort of ahead of the rest of the province. So I think right now we're at 99%, so we're very close to having full implementation. And moving forward, again, in 2018, we were required to submit a work plan to the ministry for the next 5 years or so of work. And what that does is addresses any new science, any new threats that have come onto the landscape, or any new drinking water systems, as well as any inefficiencies in those policies or any gaps that we have found. So that's, again, the next 5 years or so, and then that'll be submitted to the province, it'll get approved, and then we start all over again. So it'll always evolve and continue to change, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Canadian Environmental Law Association has recently put in a request to review the Clean Water Act, and specifically to focus on non-municipal systems, as I think the province says 80% of people's drinking water is protected under this program, but locally that's about half of our watershed. So half of our watershed residents get municipal drinking water and the rest are on private systems. So CELA is trying to help those people on their own systems or in vulnerable populations. And with that, I will just put up our staff that work on this program, if there are anyone you would like to reach out to. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Dickens. Any questions? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Amy, I sit on this committee, as you well know. The booklet that you showed, will that be part of our next meeting? Because it looks like a nice summary.
Yes, yeah, the annual progress report, yeah.
Okay. Then the material that I read about the legal application, the people that is impacting, the other half of the watershed, have they not been responsible for having their own water tested by public health all these years?
Yes, they can do free testing, yeah.
But now we're going to do it, we're going to force them or mandate it, or?
Well, yeah.
Not sure what.
It's all up in the air right now. It's
Okay.
just,
Okay, I can ask that at the meeting.
yeah, but I'll say that it's more just to, I'm not trying to pick on farmers, but, if your well was close to your neighbor's field and they're spreading manure or something right up against, then the hope is that there's some sort of protection for that landowner next door, and at the very least, that their neighbor will know, right, and put up a buffer or something to help protect their drinking water. But where it's actually going, it may go nowhere.
Is it going to be complaint driven, or are you going to go out and inspect the country? Like, how's that going to happen?
Yeah, again, if I had a crystal ball, but I would assume it would be more education and outreach and more of those lighter tools, not a heavy hand.
And just one more thing. I understood that Walkerton occurred because of a failure on the part of the water treatment plant personnel to do the appropriate testing. In fact, I think they had even falsified some test results. So I'm not making the connection between manure impacting well water and a municipal drinking water system where the actual disease outbreak occurred. Is it because, okay, so the original contamination came from the well water that was contaminated, then it was fed into the municipal treatment plant where it was not tested. Is that the way it goes? Okay.
Yeah, and it was sort of For lack of a better word, it was a perfect storm. So there were two municipalities. The farmer was spreading manure right up to his lot line, but on the next side, in a new municipality, was their well.
Okay.
And the farmer was unaware, and the well wasn't properly constructed. Records were falsified. There were a lot of factors that led to the tragedy.
So, I'm sorry, I'm just feeling my way. I would assume that factors at the actual plant itself and surrounding the treatment of municipal water, that there have been intense ramping up of the way things are done? Through
Are
you,
you
Mr.
looking at-
McDonald,
are
and
you-
somebody?
Okay, well, Ms. Dickens, you got the podium.
Sure.
You want to take a,
Yeah. So, yeah, that would fall under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So
Okay.
to go back, that's that testing and, yeah, all those inspections that they
All
do.
part of the same umbrella?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
any other questions? Oh, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So I have a motion on the floor to receive that deputation. All in favor? Motion's carried. No correspondence, Mr. Clerk? No? Okay. Referrals from the public meeting. 6.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 219 and 225 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1099. Owner applicant is Fixed for Life, David and Darlene Quincy, and agent is Keith Watson, OLS, Watson Land Surveyors. Policy planning, or policy planners report number PP-2020-10 refers. The resolution reads that report number PP-2020-10 dated February 3rd, 2020 regarding proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 219 and 225 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, be received as information, and that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any questions or comments? None? All in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to reports, 7.1, recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 18 St. Paul Street, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1087, applicant owners John Royal, agent is Keith Watson, Watson Land Surveyors Limited, principal planners report number PP-2020-09, and the resolution reads that Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That application B-77-1087 to amend zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended regarding 18 St. Paul Street, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be approved as follows. That zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject land from residential second density R21 zone to residential third density R32 zone with special provisions to permit the development of a semi-detached dwelling with a reduced front yard setback of 6 meters. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Mr. Jennings. Any questions or comments? Mr. Beltutis.
Chair, I went by that property and I couldn't see a sign that was set up for that property. So that's better. There's a picture there. So what I'm understanding is that the house that's existing is going to stay there and the driveway is going to put another building in?
Mr. Aston?
Yeah, they're going to attach the, they're going to basically, yeah, the lot line, and then they're going to build a house sort of to attach to that house, so they'll technically be semi-detached dwellings, but it won't be like your traditional tear down and build a brand new semi-detached. It'll become a semi-detached, it'll evolve to become a semi-detached building.
Okay.
Did you,
Oh, but will it be further back?
Jennifer Matthews from Watson Land Surveyors, we're here to
Okay.
answer any questions too, and also the owner, John Royal, is here as well.
So my question was, so the existing building, I think Stevens answered the question, but then is it going to have to, there's a setback that the house had to be set back from the road for a road allowance?
Yes,
have
and so we've got a road widening on the sketch, and we also have 6 meters for parking, so we shifted the building, the proposed west side back farther.
Okay, thank Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Motion's carried. 7.2 is being pulled at the request of staff. So we'll move to 7.3, and your numbers might be a little bit off on the agenda. So anyway, 7.3 is recommendation report for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended, 125 Mitchell Road, Part Lot 25, Concession BF, Part 8, Plan 21R-255119, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file numbers B-77-1098. Applicant is John Shearhorn. Owner is 732676 Ontario Incorporated. Policy Planners Report Number PP-2020-06 refers. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That application B-77-1098 to amend zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended regarding 125 Mitchell Road, Part of Lot 25, Concession BF, Part 8, Plan 21R-255119, City of Belleville, County of Hastings be approved as follows. That zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended be amended by rezoning the subject land from prime agricultural PA zone to rural RU zone with special provisions for reduced lot area and hazard H zone. Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Mr. Baltutis. Any questions or comments? See none, all in favor? The motion's carried. 7.4 is 2019 residential land supply. Principal Planners Report Number PP-2020-08. The resolution that the City of Belleville 2019 residential land supply be received as information. Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Culhane. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Motion's carried. Information matters, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report, report to February 3rd, 2020. I need a motion to receive. Councillor Culhane, Councillor Sanderson, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. General businesses and inquiries. Seeing none, I have some closing remarks. The Planning Advisory Committee's applicable decisions will be forwarded to City Council for consideration, forming part of the agenda for the City Council meeting to be held at a future date. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Mr. Baltutis, Councillor Kelly, all in favor? Motion's carried.